Everything seemed normal as the President's Secret Service bodyguards kept their ever-watchful eyes on the crowd. Everything seemed normal as the President's motorcade began its journey. Everything seemed normal. That is, up until this instant. What took place is so odd that we're going to examine the scene 4 more times. Watch the left side of your screen. The arrow points to Agent in Charge, Emory Roberts, as he stands in the Secret Service follow-up car and motions with his hand. What he is doing is calling away the President's 2 most important bodyguards, the bodyguards whose job was to protect the President's back by riding on the bumper of the limousine throughout the motorcade. Watch again as he stands and orders the agents running at the rear of the President's car away. Watch the confusion inside the follow-up car that results. Now watch the right side of your screen. The arrow points to one of 2 agents whose job was to hop aboard the bumper and act as human shields. He's obviously perplexed. Watch as he shrugs his shoulders 3 times in dismay, each shrug more dramatic than the last. As you watch this scene for the final time, ask yourself, is this the kind of conduct you would expect from an agency that routinely sends an advance team to a city a month or more prior to the President's arrival in order to make preparations? Now ask yourself if the assassination could have taken place at all had those men been on the bumper during the motorcade. This is the rear of the presidential limousine. The back bumper is specially designed with a platform on both the right and left sides. There are also handrails on both sides of the trunk. This is where the agent should have been to provide the President even minimal security. The President, unaware of the treachery behind him and the danger waiting for him ahead, continued on to his death.
Wow.
Very bad.
It's like a movie. Oh, man. Again, it's some piece of footage there.
Yeah, Helmer Rimberg.
Yeah, he's compiled quite a bit.
Footage. Some of the
but
best.
That's what he's referring to there is Emory Roberts, and we'll get into this with Vince when he comes on. I don't want to step on Vince's storyline, but Ripka and Lawton were the 2 agents that he's referring to. Lawton there shrugging his shoulders, and then Ripka, I think, is in the car. Both were left behind, and we're going to get into this specific area of the Secret Service, not the history of the Secret Service, not 1865, not Lincoln, not a lot of different things. We're going to get into a thing called stripping, and Vince knows quite a bit about this. This is about stripping coverage of whoever the target is by the Secret Service, which is what happened in the JFK assassination and what we believe or will discuss about this weekend Saturday event. So I don't want to step on Vince when he comes on. So we're going to try to just talk about leading up to the situation with the Secret Service. Now, there's some elements of this that we've explored and that Vince has explored in, I think, 1 or 2 previous episodes, Eric, or I mean, with Vince,
or I don't remember now. It's once or twice with Vince.
Right. And how many episodes do we have on the Secret Service?
Well, we did 2 episodes on the Secret Service, plus I think the 3rd with Vince. Yeah.
So we have 3, and this will be episode 4.
Yes, or it could be seen as a one-off because it's such a specific situation in flux right now.
Well, no, but we're going to get into Secret Service specifically.
Oh,
This is. I never intended this to be a wide open thing about the assassination. We could get into that at a later day. But because it's Vince Palamara, who's coming on, the leading expert on the JFK Secret Service protection history, we thought that Vince and I thought that we could compare Trump's protection on Saturday with JFK's protection on a Friday, and specifically in regards to a couple of areas that I wanted to get into. Sniper coverage by the Secret Service and stripping of coverage by the Secret Service. These are two areas. I don't know about the first one, but Vince knows quite a bit about the stripping of coverage of the Secret Service. He has put together visual presentations that are awesome. If anybody wants to see them, you could go to Vince's YouTube channel, or
multiple books.
Strongly recommend that you purchase his book, Survivor's Guilt, which features chapter after chapter, but one chapter in specifics about the stripping of coverage, which we're going to get in the weeds. There's going to be interruptions, people. If this is not your ballywick, if you cannot tolerate people interrupting each other, I suggest you go to the History Channel, where it's edited.
I'll do my best to not interrupt too much.
Yeah, I mean, the interruptions are not being rude. I have to give a disclaimer. We geek out on each other, and this happens with me and other researchers. We start to get excited and geek out on each other's stuff, and we interrupt each other. It's not being rude. I know you think it's rudeness. It's not rudeness. I just want to issue a disclaimer right now, because we both know a lot of stuff. We've both been down this road, and we try to talk in a little bit of a shorthand. I will interrupt Vince so he can tell the audience at home things that I and him already know for clarity's sake. I know that sounds hard to follow, but if I interrupt Vince, it's for him to tell you at home what he's talking about, because we both, just talk straight up like we're in a bar or something, which is what a lot of people like about the show. But there's some people who find it intolerant, and for them, there's the History Channel, or what's going to happen when Vince and I start going. That being said, we can recap where we are right now. I find it really exciting and bizarre that the nickname for the shooter, the kid who is currently dead,
School shooter,
is school shooter. Did you know that, or?
Yeah, I saw that earlier. I mean, there's more and more and more.
Yeah,
sadly, not surprisingly, bullied potentially on down the line. The BlackRock commercial, I just find to be
bizarre.
Fascinating.
That's bizarre.
It's a dot.
Yeah, that's a dot. There's some weird stuff going on there. The guy who owned the company, the glass company that American Glass Research made the glass for the atomic bomb, and was on the island of the Bikini Atoll when the bomb was detonated in 1946. The guy in that town who is the owner of that company recently sold it. The family, he's been dead for a number of years, was also into falconry, not unlike RFK Jr. But he made the glass works for the ability for the atomic bomb, the sightings within the bomb itself, and was invited with a top secret security clearance to the Bikini Atoll when they detonated the bombs, 1946 bombs. So keep that in mind, which is kind of.
By the way, you know who else is into falconry?
Who?
Saudi Arabia. It's one of the
Saudi Arabia, absolutely. And we also are going to talk about the RFK Secret Service. So it's going to be all three. It's going to be RFK Jr. And RFK Sr. I'd like to talk about that. I'd like to talk about Reagan a little bit, which Eric and I discussed on Saturday among ourselves. And I'd like to talk about, obviously, the Trump situation and the recent RFK Mayorkas situation. We'll get into that at the top of the hour when Vince comes on. But regarding RFK, which we could talk about, Mayorkas announced yesterday that they will be providing, finally, Secret Service protection for RFK Jr. This, of course, he says, is in relation to the events that happened on Saturday. And as Dan Bongino pointed out today, what happened with the threat level that Mayorkas said would trigger, quote unquote, Secret Service protection for RFK Jr. There was no threat alert for RFK Jr. It's simply a political move, which was the original move that for not giving him our Secret Service protection. Secret Service protection, the level that he was getting by Gavin Becker and Associates here in Hollywood, here in LA. Gavin Becker and Associates is the top security firm. They're the Pinkertons of the celebrities out here in Hollywood, by the way. Mm-hmm. And Gavin Becker has been billing him financially somewhere between $250,000 to $500,000 a month for protection. This was about Biden financially wounding one of his opponents and putting him in harm's way and possibly physically wounding him, like we saw what happened with Trump. So again, this is a vicious, vicious style of hardball politics by a man who received checks for $200,000 from his own brother in kickbacks.
I don't want to be cheeky here, but there is a part of me that goes, does he really want that Secret Service protection that we saw on Saturday?
Well, you want it so you can supplement it. You want the intelligence. Again, it's a broad-based. Secret Service is not just a White House detail, as you're well aware.
Yeah, counterfeiting and whatnot.
No. I'm talking about what it offers the person they're protecting.
Right.
I'm just saying that there's intelligence levels, there's threat assessment, there's all that stuff that goes with it. Not just the internal bodyguard physically of putting a body on someone. So there is much that could be supplemented that RFK could use, and that DeBecker and Associates would like to use themselves as an agency. But really the reason was financial. And not that we couldn't afford it, what the reason was, and this is from RFK Jr. himself. I'm not saying this. RFK Jr. said the reason was financial, that the Biden administration wanted to bleed him dry, using the words of RFK Jr., to wound his campaign, financially wound his campaign, which is sick considering what happened to his father. Now, what happened to his father, right, but his uncle had Secret Service. His father did not. The reason is, that's where I was going with this. The father did not because it wasn't the law yet. The father, there was no legal law. The demand after his father's assassination was by LBJ getting on the phone and demanding that Secret Service protection now cover all the other candidates that were out there in the weeds. And I guess that's
what happened now. I mean, Trump put out the truth saying, hey, RFK Jr. should get it. And then apparently, according to Mayorkas, Biden called him and said, give him protection.
Right.
So,
right. Very LBJ-ish. Unfortunately, in this case, it is the law. And back then, there was no law. The law happens post RFK's assassination. Afterwards, the law goes through with being spearheaded by LBJ. Now, keep that oddly enough, LBJ possibly didn't want LAPD, which he felt was very contentious towards him at the time. And he had his own ex-FBI agent, bodyguard, Barry, I think his name was, a family guy. And he had Rosie Greer, and he had a bunch of other sports guys who were guarding him, quote unquote. But that's unprofessional stuff. That's not professional bodyguards who know different things on how to do stuff. The situation with RFK Jr.'s father was that I believe, and I've contended this, that LBJ was involved and said repeatedly, I'm going to cut his throat no matter how long it takes, and eventually did cut his throat. And his threats to RFK Sr. were long, and they were well heard by a lot of people. And I think, what's that?
And documented.
And documented, yeah, that's what I was looking for, the word documented. And anyway, so make a long story short, he has no Secret Service protection because there is no law for candidates to have Secret Service protection. RFK Jr. has been battling the Biden administration, claiming that he is a candidate. Is he a major candidate? It depends how you define major. They get into these polling weeds and they start doing different things about polls to determine who's a major candidate. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? The guy's got a long history of this in his family. And I'll tell you this, there's another backstory to this. When he was the campaign manager, this is RFK Sr., for his brother, and when his brother became president of the United States and he became attorney general, he did not trust the Secret Service. And he wrote a bill that was floating through the House at the time to change the Secret Service protection of presidents to the FBI. And the reason he wanted the FBI was not that he trusted the FBI. It was because he was attorney general and he was in charge of the FBI, which is what he wanted. That bill was killed. Again, I'm just using these words, political words, for YouTube. That bill was killed by LBJ once he was sworn in, I think a week later. That bill was floating around for a while, and LBJ put an end to it.
A couple bills got put to rest when LBJ took over, right?
Well, that's a specific piece of legislation. I just wanted to talk about that. That was legislation that RFK had written. Now, James Rowley, who is the head of the Secret Service, is brought to the side of LBJ, where he is sewn to the hip of LBJ from the time the plane lands in Washington to the end of his career. He never leaves LBJ's side, not because he's protecting LBJ. LBJ wants this guy by his side because he doesn't trust him. And he's also a guy who was involved in whatever happened on November 22nd, and which we'll get into. Rowley is part of this situation. There's a photo I put up of Rowley being sworn in the other day. This is Rowley with LBJ. There's one of Kennedy I found the other day, which I put up on Twitter, of him being sworn in. And not that it means anything, but that being said, regarding what happened the other day, Donald Trump Jr. reported that he was not able to reach his father for over an hour and a half. And I thought that was kind of odd. And the reason was, and this is an interesting little tidbit, the Secret Service shut down everyone's cell phone out of fear of IEDs. Did you know this?
No, but what I've seen, some of the intelligence coming up makes me go, it's not necessarily wrong, because according to what I'm seeing recently, the shooter was found with a transmitter and explosives in the car with receiver. Were there other receiver? I mean, if they're being cautious, it's hard for me to shut. Well,
apparently, according to Trump Jr., this is standard operating procedure to shut down.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I don't think he was supposed to say that either. But he said he couldn't reach his father for an hour and a half, and somebody explained it to him afterwards that all the cell phones surrounding the president, including family members, are shut down out of fear of IEDs, which is kind of interesting. Which is, if you think back, some folks in the Mossad use them to take out some people in the Middle East, some terrorists.
Oh, it's pretty common. Yeah,
it's very common. Yeah. Okay. So I guess they have adjusted to the commonality of the IED thing. But yeah, that was a side thing. I didn't even realize that.
Improvised explosive device, Peter, is my first name.
Oh, right. IED. Right. I thought people knew that. I'm sorry. What's also interesting is the statement made by the head of the Secret Service today about the slanted roof. This has become such a debacle, such an embarrassment, such an incredibly insane scenario where nobody resigns and nobody gets fired in this.
But the buck stops there, Mark. The buck stops there.
I don't know where the buck stops, but this chick, Cheadle, is that her name? What's her name?
Cheeto. Oh, I'm sorry. That's what Most says.
Cheadle. Yeah, Cheadle. I just like it's like Cheat and Crook. Cheat and Crook are the two main names in this thing. Cheadle and Crooks.
Good point.
Cheadle said that the slanted roof was too dangerous to put a Secret Service sniper on top of it. I don't know what this is. This is
a visual representation of her assassination protection strategy put together from Elon Musk.
That's weird. I mean, keep in mind, to be fair, I mean, Eric's referring to the fact that she worked for security for Pepsi Cola. Right. But again, she was also in the Secret Service for 22 years before that. So she does have Secret Service experience. It wasn't just working for PepsiCo. So people have to take into consideration. However, that being said, her excuse is insane. I mean, this is the craziest excuse since the dog ate my homework. I mean, saying the roof, and somebody pointed out on Twitter, the roof was slanted where the Secret Service snipers were also, even at a greater angle than the one that was the more.
You mean the
flattened.
good slant bad slant? Post?
I don't know, but
I think it had it as good slant with the Secret Service snipers, bad slant. Anyway.
I saw there's also conspiratorial statements that not conspiratorial statements, they were using, this is insane, how the kid got a ladder to climb up the ladder to get on the roof. That's one of the great mysteries to be explored, almost like the Lindbergh kidnapping. And the fact that they were setting up in that in that warehouse as a police unit below him is, of course, insane. And then the conspiratorial theories that they were using the windows in the building to shoot out of is another thing floating around.
I don't want to get into that one. Yeah, and
well,
it's actually the Secret Service themselves doing it. Yeah,
that's what's it's all over Twitter right now.
Oh, I know, and I'm like, okay, I've got to really see a lot more evidence. What really troubles me, and this comes from the Secret Service. So when I see statements that's coming from them and other law enforcement, it's like, well, I might give credence that they spotted this guy a half hour before on the roof. So was he on the roof and they got back down off the roof to climb back? He must have.
He must have. Yeah.
I'm like, he was like all over the place. They're like, oh, he was in the parking lot. We took a picture of him and they identified him after the fact. I'm like,
well, his car had obviously explosive devices in the car. What was his plan, to go back and detonate that?
No, it was to it's funny because I had an expert on, he talked about the Ariana Grande attack. And I don't know if you remember that, but I forgot what he did, but you hit the explosive, everybody runs to the explosive. And you got clean shots.
I got you. Right. Gotcha.
So,
yeah. Well, look, I mean, I hate to comment on something because it's so early in the investigation in terms of conspiracy stuff. I mean, there's just a lot of meat on the bone for sure. I mean, there's
a mess up. There's a screw up. We got that.
Yeah. Anyway, you slice it. I mean, this woman's got to go. This woman's got to go. This is a mass uproar now by the American people. Again, we'll get into this with Vince, but I'll tell you what I do know. Elements of that Secret Service unit were pulled away to Pittsburgh by Jill Biden, who was speaking the same day in Pittsburgh, and they took away a second sniper team. So we know that a lot of the stripping, or some of the stripping, went on from the Secret Service internally. Now, you could also say, and I'll ask Vince about this, who gets the best and the brightest? I would assume the president gets the best, right? Who gets the second best? His wife, maybe? His family? Who gets the third best, fourth best?
Honestly, there should be no best.
But there is.
I know. But in general, it's like one of those that you have to be the best to be on a protection detail to begin with. So it would be the best, best, and the best. And I mean, I'm not kidding. I've been in the military, and that's there are certain
in reality that may not be the case because somebody decided that he had to have 5 overweight women. Okay, that's odd, Eric. In an organization that has less than 7% or 8% women, how does he end up with 5 women on his detail and Biden has 0? What is the message you're sending here by doing that? If they're all equal, why does he end up with 5 of them?
I don't know, Mark. It's just a speculation, but perhaps it's this.
I
don't know.
I don't know, but there were 5 of those. So that's the one that couldn't find her.
Well, no, that was also the one that was standing with a gap between the rest of them. So they were all piled on him, and there was one back. Now, in fairness, because I'm trying to be fair, I mean, it's hard. Was that a still frame of a film, and she was actually moving in, and we just caught the frame while she was separated? I've got to, be honest. But the big question about the fumbling of the gun is not the fumbling of the gun, Mark, as my people pointed out. Why was the gun out at all? She should not have had the gun out. She should have been covering him. there's other people who are
Well,
the gun
I
people.
think when they were by the vehicle, I think all 3 guns should have been above their heads, out and above their heads.
They shouldn't have been out at all, according to the experts.
I'm going to differ with them and use the Reagan footage to push back on that.
Well,
Everyone had
him thrown in the car.
Nah, look at everybody else, bro. Everybody's got their guns up. Everyone's got them out and up. You don't have time to go in and get it, Eric. You got to have them out. Anyway, we'll discuss this with Vince. Let me just set this up a little bit. This is the book Survivor's Guilt. I strongly recommend this book to anyone who's interested in the JFK assassination, and specifically about the Secret Service protection involved in the event. Now, Vince is coming out with a new book, I believe, in October. We were going to have him on in August or beginning of September or late August. I forgot what we agreed to, but because of urgent events that have happened, we have brought Vince on a little early. Now, this book, The Secret Service and the Failure to Protect President Kennedy, goes into different areas of protection regarding the Kennedy assassination. And one of the also, by the way, while I have this book thing, Abraham Bolden's book here, the African-American Secret Service agent, the first one on the White House detail, the true story of the first African-American. You could see our episode that Eric and I did. This is a great book, Echo from Dealey Plaza, about how the impact of John F. Kennedy's assassination had on him, and how he was framed and put into jail by the Justice Department and was railroaded for speaking out about the inadequacies of the White House detail. If I could boil it down to that, I think that was his main crime, was that he wouldn't shut up about their lack of professionalism, their drinking, their womanizing, and everything else. And
well, he's here to set us straight. So.
Okay, well, we just wanted to set him up, and so sometimes people say, "Who is this guy?" and don't give us any.
Well, I know you guys. Once you start, you're just going to run.
No, but I just wanted to, because people have complained in the past that I don't introduce the guests and they just pop up and we start going. So I did want to help Vince get the book information out there. I don't know about the new book. Vince can talk about that when we bring him in, which is probably about now.
And here he is.
Hey, Vince, welcome back.
Hey, great to see you guys. Hello, Eric. Hello, Mark.
Hey.
Thank you, all your viewers, listeners. Appreciate it.
You've got quite a few yourself, bro. So, I mean, there's a lot of them that migrate over here, and maybe we can get some comments from them later in the show. When is the new book coming out, Vince? And what is it about? I forgot. I wanted to plug this if I could.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you for the introduction, too. Yeah, the new book, sixth book, is called The Plot to Kill President Kennedy in Chicago and the Other Traces of Conspiracy That Led to the Assassination of JFK, a Visual Investigation. So it's like a 3-part thing. It's basically the Chicago plot.
Right. Oh, really?
New evidence.
Really?
Yeah. Some things to corroborate Abraham Bolden. I spoke to Abraham Bolden like 30 some years ago.
Right.
We've had a lot of conversations back then, and also through the years on social media, Facebook and whatnot. But it's much more than just Abraham Bolden's word. You know, people on the other side say, "Oh, it's just Abraham Bolden's word about this so-called Chicago plot." I've got evidence to corroborate and vindicate Abraham Bolden. At the same time, I detail a lot of previously unknown threats to President Kennedy. That's really going to make I can't wait to see people's reaction, because talk about new evidence. This book is not the same old single bullet theory, same old ground traveled. It's none of that stuff, which is very important. Don't get me wrong. The single bullet theory, trash, and that's good. But yeah, so it's a Chicago plot / prior threats. I think it's going to get people really interested.
You're going to cover Miami and Tampa in there, or
all that and more, other cities that people didn't even know about, and a few countries too. It was a moving crime.
Wow.
It wasn't just a man in a building shot a man in a car, to quote David Lifton. It was a lot more than that. But yeah, you guys are so right, though. This whole thing about really threw me a loop for several reasons about former President Trump, who's now the GOP nominee. I mean, I don't even know where to begin, but I'll just say this, that to your viewers, listeners, that the shooter lives 5 minutes away from me.
I knew it.
I'm from Bethel Park. He's from Bethel
Wow.
Park. We went to the same
Right.
high school. Now, keep in mind, now I'm 58 and he's 20, so I
Right.
didn't know him from Adam, and
Yeah.
decades between us. But here's the other thing too. Now he's the same community 5 minutes away. I know that street vividly, but also my mom passed away last year when she was staying in that skilled nursing home. He worked as a dietary aide. So it's like at first it's
Whoa.
like I can't believe this is Butler,
Whoa.
PA, roughly 45 minutes north of Pittsburgh. Then you go to the
Whoa.
hometown. Then you go to, oh my God, they're showing the
Wow.
nursing home that she stayed at last year, and
Oh my
that's
God.
where he worked. So it's just like I'm
What?
like, and obviously getting into the actual what shouldn't have happened and everything. But beyond that, you could see how it just was like, pardon the pun, mind blowing. I don't know how else to put it in
Yeah.
a
I mean, what
peaceful
else are you
way,
going to
but just,
say?
yeah, it just, even if this would have happened in, I don't know, Chicago or Roanoke, Virginia or something, still would have been a main. But when I was trying to
Mhm.
wrap my head around, my wife and I were just like, this is unbelievable. He's, I could say, because they've said it on the news, Milford Drive. I mean, that's
Yeah.
like I said, it's like 5 minute drive, if that, from where I'm at. So
I
all
thought
that
of
stuff.
you immediately when it happened. When I thought of you immediately, and that's why I said let's get Vince on the show because this is his neighborhood.
Yeah.
Not just you, half our audience was saying, get Vince, get Vince. You got to get Vince. You got to get Vince.
I've done
Well, let's.
several
What is your
podcasts.
take
Yeah.
of what we know so far? Let's. I wanted to. I said in the intro, I wanted to talk about the similarities and differences of all three. The Trump coverage, the JFK coverage, the RFK Jr. story also is now relevant, Vince,
Yeah.
and also his father, who, like I said in the intro, was given coverage post mortem by LBJ because it wasn't the law yet, Vince.
Yeah. Uh, First of all, I could just say this: whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent, whether you like President Trump or don't like him, this would have created a new civil war. This
I
would have
thought so. Yeah.
created, like the
Yeah.
Los Angeles Rodney King riots in
Yes.
1992, where they were burning buildings. Imagine that across the country if this
Yep.
would have been a successful assassination. Not only been a horrible, horrible thing to happen to the country, and if you're sick, anyone's sick in the head that wish any ill on President Trump
Anybody.
or President Biden or anybody else for that matter. But beyond that, it would have created, you talk about division. This is kid stuff out there now compared to what would happen with that. So again, civil war, riots in the cities. I mean, we'll get into this security, but this is like an overall thing that,
Yeah.
they said, first they said, oh, the bullet missed him by 1 to 2 inches. Now they're saying, doctors are on saying, it's more like millimeters. It's more
Yeah.
like, if you're religious, the grace of God, there's a fluke, whatnot. If President Trump didn't turn his head to look at that, that little schematic he had there, the drawing or whatnot. This was been awful. So there's that. But the big thing about the Secret Service, and I just want to say something I said, might not seem like it, but I'm a big admirer of the Secret Service. They've done a lot of tremendous things through the decades, and since 1865, thousands of men and women. It originally was counterfeiting, and it's protecting, our presidents, vice president, and other foreign dignitaries and other people signed. And they've done a tremendous job through the years. There's a lot of, they're afraid of copycats. So there's a lot we don't know or didn't make the headlines as we try to bury. Like, for example, a lot of people don't realize that George W. Bush, him in, I think it's the Russian area in Georgia, not Atlanta, Georgia, but Georgia and Russia in the, I think it was around 2004, something like that. In the, it didn't go off, thank God, but that was kept as low key as they could. They did not want that to come out. Yeah, you're showing the diagram now of the bullet, and it really begins, ironically, about rooftops, rooftop security or lack thereof.
Yes.
140 yards away, an amateur 20-year-old nerdy kid has an AR-15. Spectators are seeing him go up a ladder. What's a ladder doing there? Okay, and it wasn't a fixed ladder. Turns out it was just like a regular ladder. You'd plop up against the building and go up.
He bought it at
Everyone's
Home
seeing him.
Depot the day before, I think.
You
He
should see
did, Eric? He did?
Yeah. They have put it. He bought that at Home Depot. He bought the ammo.
How did he get it there? On the roof of his car?
He drove it. It's
On the
only
roof
like a
of
5-foot ladder. It's like a 5-foot ladder.
Okay.
You could probably fit it.
Go ahead, Vince.
Pull
I'm
down a
sorry.
seat.
Yeah, it's okay.
Whatever.
Well, Google Maps probably, showed him what to do as far as where to go and whatnot. But again, amateur people, you just go on TikTok, social media, you'll see all sorts of amateur iPhone videos of people shouting. You can hear President Trump in real time delivering his speech, and they're saying, hey, officer, there's someone on the building. Look, you can see him crawling. And there's some people go matter of factly, yeah, you can see, look at him walking, crawling on it. He's crawling like a military crawl like that. He's not in black clothing. He's not in like military clothing. You know what would have really been tragic? If he would have used any brain cells and tried to pass himself off like a security officer, maybe a fake uniform to throw off the feds. You know, I think, not to get off on a tangent, but briefly, in 2012, the Aurora, Colorado shooter was dressed like a tactical guy. So at first they didn't know, was this one of our guys or not, when he was outside changing his clothes, getting into his car. Any event, they see him up there.
I'll just add another one thing, Eugene Caesar for Ace Security at the Ambassador Hotel. It was his first night working for Ace Security. There's a great one, Vince.
But the thing is, the advance team gets there low end 48 hours in advance, high end 2 weeks in advance. That's a Secret Service. They scope out wherever President Trump or Biden or anybody else that's under their care. They usually like 2 weeks, but at the very least 48 hours to scope things out, literally scope things out, say, whoa, that's a bad vantage point there for but they think like an assassin. And common sense, John Q. Sisson, all these amateur detectives on TikTok are even saying, I would know that building right there is bad news. Why didn't they have local police and or agents on there? Why didn't they have drones? Why didn't they get drones, human coverage, or both?
Thermal, yeah.
You know, just one human being on top of that roof that was in law enforcement or Secret Service would have negated the whole thing. How they left that open is such a tremendous, disgusting breach of security. I don't know. You know, it gives you, paranoia. Was this a setup? But at the very least, it's gross incompetence. And I think part of it was they were cutting corners, because now it's coming out that former President Trump's regular Secret Service detail was overburdened, and some of them were taking a break. And they're saying the site agent was not the regular site agent. And a lot of people have noticed that some of the agents kind of look like Keystone Cops. People were saying, I can't see earpieces in the photos and videos. Where's the earpieces at?
Interesting.
And other than one agent, now there is one bona fide agent in the sunglasses and the famous picture of Trump like this. He's on his left, which would be camera right. That agent was with President Trump when he was in New York for all his court cases, or one other court case. But all the other agents were basically new. And some of these, and again, male or female agents, God bless them, but some of these agents were very short. The female agent had difficulty getting her pistol out of its holster, and they just looked like the Keystone Cops. And the other thing too, not only about the rooftops not being, guarded, and that, and even when, things were transpiring, why weren't the officers and the counter assault team on the roof? He's sitting there ready with the scope, the high powered scope that could check out freckles. That's how far away they could. The scopes are nothing like the scopes you get on rifles in the store. Trust me, those things are space age. Why they didn't fire at that time? There's shoot to kill, but their orders are shoot to kill. They have authorization. It's not like, they have to wait for a command. There was some story out there trying not to be true that.
Well, Vince, what about the sightline storyline that how could you not see the guy, but then shoot him 5 seconds later? Would the sightline change? I mean, they took him out, so clearly there's a sightline by taking him out.
What I think happened, by the way, I spoke to Dan Emmett, who was a member of the counter assault team for George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and George W. Bush. He was in the Secret Service from 86 to 2004. He thought the counter sniper team did a great job, but he thinks the Secret Service obviously dropped the ball and they're going to assume the responsibility. He was a member of that counter assault team for years. He was the guy who had been on the roof checking things out. And it seems like what transpired was the roof the assassin, Thomas Matthew Crooks, was on had a little bit of a rise, or I guess about a foot or so. It wasn't totally flat like a ranch dwelling. He had that. I think what happened was the counter assault team was up there and they saw someone, but they probably assumed at first, well, that building had to have been checked out. That's probably a law enforcement person. And they were confused. Is that law enforcement? Is that a civilian? When they finally saw the gun, they couldn't take a chance and they shot to kill. It was shoot to kill at that point, because either that or you got a dead protectee. They came damn close to having
Well, you had a dead attendee. So
what a shame. Fireman, good man, killed, and 2 others in critical condition. That's another thing too. This whole thing about being staged. I see all this paranoid dribble online. It wasn't staged. You know what the proof that wasn't staged? Someone was killed. 2 people were critically injured. If it was staged, there would have been blanks used and no one would have got hurt. Then you can get paranoid about, maybe this was staged. This is too good to be true.
What do you make about this water tower, this in the background there? Some people talking about the water tower today.
Yeah, it reminds me of in JFK, the grassy knoll and
Yeah,
alternates.
the water
Because,
tower is the grassy knoll, maybe. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
because
there's
the
people.
several
grassy knoll's
witnesses
close, but
that claim
the
that the
tower.
shot came from there. And there's a video on TikTok now, it's making the rounds, where you see spectators behind Trump react to what looks like like shrapnel or the grazing of a bullet, like a millisecond. You see a flash, and from the trajectory, that could have been Thomas Matthew Crooks.
Yeah,
So where did that bullet come from? It makes his grist for the mill for thinking there could have been another shooter. Now they're quick to say, what does this remind you of? That Matthew Crooks acted alone,
yeah,
but you can never rule anything out in this day and age. I tell people all the time, the Lincoln assassination was a conspiracy, one shooter, but multiple people involved, multiple people were hung.
yep,
Truman in November 1st, 1950, two Puerto Rican nationalists. That's a
that's right.
conspiracy. And several of those agents end up guarding JFK later on.
Well,
So
wasn't
it's
it
not,
Emory Roberts or Boring?
Boring was there. He actually was one of the
Yeah,
ones that fired shots. The Truman
yeah.
attempt in 1950. Stu Stout, too, was waiting for JFK
Oh,
at the
that's
Trade
right.
Mart. He
Yes.
was waiting for JFK at the Trade Mart. Well, back in
Yeah.
1950, he had a
Woo!
Thompson submachine gun at the
That's
top of the
right.
stairs.
That's
If the
right.
Puerto Rican nationalists ever got in, he was going to fire last line of defense. Yes, Emory Roberts was a member of the White House detail for Truman at the time.
That's right.
Vince Mraz, who was a hero of November 1950, ended up guarding JFK. So yeah, you had that. So that's another thing too. When people try to say, "Oh, Vince, give these agents a break. They weren't prepared for what happened in Dallas." Not was their threats that people are going to see in my book coming out. There was many prior threats. There you go.
There, it
But
looks like it.
also they were groomed on not only the November 1950 assassination attempts against Truman, where an officer was killed, another one was gravely injured. Okay, you got actual agents of the White House detail who were involved in the shooting to try to protect Truman. But then you also have some agents who were around for President-elect FDR down in Miami when
Mm,
some crazy guy stood on a stool or a chair, I think it was a chair, and he fired at President-elect FDR. And if it wasn't for a woman, I think, who grabbed his arm, and it killed Mayor Cermak, and ironically,
right.
Cermak of
Well, I mean,
Chicago.
the Teddy Roosevelt situation is closest to Trump. I mean, the fact that
Yeah.
the letter and his glasses case blocked the bullet, very similar to the Trump situation. And Teddy
Yeah.
Roosevelt was running again for a second term, right, Eric?
Both are
bull
former
moose.
presidents.
The Bull
Both are
Moose
former
Party.
presidents.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was McKinley's vice president, and then when McKinley was assassinated, he took over. Then he had a term in his own right. Then he ran for the Bull Moose Party, and it
Right.
was like 1912. Thomas Schrank fired a bullet that would have killed Teddy Roosevelt if it wasn't for his speech. It was all crumpled up, and it absorbed most of the bullet.
Mhm.
And then he also has glasses case. And then it was amazing. Truman.
Don't forget Lincoln's son is at every one of these things.
Yeah. And
Dude, what's the deal with Todd Lincoln? He's everywhere. Every
was it that
assassination.
John Wilkes Booth's brother saved.
When he was falling through the train, he caught Todd Lincoln and pulled him up, and commented later that it was kind of a miracle that something good happened to their families.
He was also present when Garfield was killed at the railway station.
That's
in
right.
Washington,
We covered that in
1881.
in our Garfield episode. Yeah.
I think he was even around when McKinley was killed.
Yes.
He thought that he had a curse to him. First my dad, then another president, then another president. So it's amazing.
Well, it's a little weird, Vince. I mean, that you're at 3 presidential assassinations. I mean, and I think he was in one of their cabinets. He was a member of the cabinet of.
I have to brush up on that. I remember reading that a while ago. And then the other thing was, everybody knows, the Reagan assassination attempt, March 30th, 1981. John Hinckley, his brother was due to dine with the Bushes. So is that grist family? Neil Bush is like because the Hinckley family was from Dallas, and John Hinckley bought his pistol from a thrift store on Elm Street where the assassination occurred. And so that was really amazing. But again, the Hinckleys were well-to-do, and they were just Republican donors. Go show you what a small world. There would be paranoid people out there say, "Hey, this is Vince Palamara. Hey, he comes from the same community as Thomas Matthew Crooks."
Yeah, what somebody's going to say that in 30 years.
Well, I got that sound clip. Don't worry about it. I got it.
We got the sound clip when they want that, Vince.
But
I wanted to talk to you about specifically with Trump and specifically with JFK about security stripping.
Sure, we get more.
I wanted to get into that because that's an area that you have done a lot of research on. I've learned it from you, and some of it on my own, but most of it is your work in stripping security and thereby having the Secret Service implicated in the actual things, or the leadership of the Secret Service, more specifically, right, Vince?
Well, another thing too was, in addition to the rooftops not being guarded, and all these civilians are saying, "Hey, there's someone on the rooftop, and why didn't they do what they did in time? And they should have had that scoped out." And I was talking about the agents themselves seemed to be of his background. They were like temporary agents, not his full-time detail. Why, oh, why was a bulletproof glass used in front of Trump? I mean, there's two famous examples. There's many examples, but you think of like when the Obamas, election night 2008, Michelle and Barack Obama and the kids came out, and there was a huge thing in front of the Chicago audience, and it was bulletproof glass. January 6, 2001, Trump talks to the people there. He's in front of bulletproof glass. There's many other examples. Those are the two most high profile, and it's it's bulletproof. In other words, if Thomas Matthew Crooks would have shot at it, wouldn't have dented a thing.
The grassy knoll is similar now to the rooftop, because everyone was pointing to the grassy knoll, and law enforcement went to the grassy knoll. People were pointing to the grassy knoll, just like the rooftop. So a lot of similarities here.
And you got that water tower thing where there's people that swear that there was another shooter at the water tower. Oh, now it's coming out that there was an Iranian plot to kill President Trump. It's just coming out today. It's been on CNN, Fox, MSNBC, you name it.
Hold on, Vince. The problem with that, too, is they said, oh, there's an Iranian prop, so we enhanced his security. And it's like, if that's the enhancement, he's so lucky to be alive, it's beyond control. That's enhanced?
It seems like they were stripping his security. Now, we know for a fact that the Jill Biden performance or speech she was giving in Pittsburgh, that they pulled people from the Trump detail, and they're admitting to a sniper team to go with Jill Biden to Pittsburgh. So that might have been the second sniper unit. There's some factual stripping right there, Vince.
Yeah, they definitely, well, like I said, his regular detail felt like they were overburdened and need a break. They had temporary people in there. And just the fact that they had that counter assault team of these two agents, officers, they're actually officers, Secret Service agents. Not everybody wears a suit and tie. Sometimes they look like police officers, but they're actually Secret Service, part of the CAT team.
It says police on their back, right? It says police.
Yeah, actually, we'll say Secret Service too, but sometimes it'll just say police. They'll say one or the other, sometimes both. And they were up there, and I think what it was they were cutting corners. They thought this is a really friendly crowd. We're in Butler, PA. Statistically shows they probably didn't find any threats. They probably checked the protective research section. That's whenever a president or a protectee visits a town in advance, they check to see if there's any local screwballs. They said, this is a really friendly crowd. Hey, we're out in the open. We're okay. We'll cut some corners, not realizing why was this rooftop left open for some 20? I can't stress this enough. This nerdy amateur kid came within a millimeter of killing Trump. And I tell you, I think it would have been the automatic disbanding of the Secret Service. You would have had riots, civil war. You would have had conspiracy theories run amok, that people thinking, the government did this and everything, whether there was any truth or not.
You may have that anyway, but let me ask you, you this. I was talking to Eric before this, but I don't think I was clear enough. The number one unit of the protection bubble would go to Joe Biden, right?
Yes.
The White House detail. I would believe that as you go down the chain of command, the quality of the coverage diminishes, or at least the quantity, Vince. I mean,
there's a huge exception here. It's okay. Yeah, your point's well taken, except there's one big exception. It would be President Trump, former President Trump. He served 4 years. He's currently running as the GOP nominee.
I'm just talking generalities.
Yeah.
Let's say the children of Obama, do they get the A-list coverage that Joe Biden gets?
No, I wouldn't say.
Maybe more like Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter,
Vince.
Jimmy
Carter.
Yeah.
He just had like a couple agents with him. Yeah,
right. So there is a pecking order, is what I was trying. That's what I was trying to say before.
Oh, you guys are absolutely right. But I will just say, in fairness, Trump is like, if Biden's here as far as the level of protection and that, Trump would probably be here, and then everybody else would be grading down.
That's open to debate. That's why I wanted to bring it up, because I don't know that degree of difference. I really don't. But there is a difference.
Trump would literally have the closest to the Presidential Protective Division's security that you could have. And again,
Okay.
even if he did,
Okay.
even if we could play devil's advocate and say, Vince, I don't know about that. I'm going to disagree with you there. Common sense. People in the crowd were saying, why was that rooftop left there? Well, there's some kid on there. If they just would have had even just a lone officer, state police, local police, an agent from field office and whatnot, drones to keep track, that
They were
ladder
in the
should never been
building,
there.
Vince. They
What's
were
that?
in
They
the
were
building.
That
inside the
was the other
building.
thing I was going to bring up. Yeah, the
It was a
advanced
staging area.
the staging area. They were in the building while he's on top of it. This is just,
It's like
I
being
mean,
inside the Texas School Book Depository with Dallas police.
yeah, it was exactly. Or when Ruby was shot, there's all those officers around. Hey, how did he do? And there's
Now,
all those
what
officers
is
around.
RFK Jr. going to get today? And now it's his first day of protective service. What does he get today?
He will more than likely, well, like Mitt Romney received a lot of former Secret Service agents in his
All right.
protective detail, former agents. I think with RFK Jr., probably they'll have field office agents in Washington. The Washington field office augments the White House detail, also known as Presidential Protective Division. And you guys going back and forth between those two offices because they're
Well,
literally right there.
let me just get in the weeds with you a second. Is it called Protective Intelligence now, or did
No,
they change the name to?
well, Protective Research Section
Yeah,
was the division that monitored threats back in JFK's time. It became
yeah.
protective intelligence in the 70s onward. It
Okay,
used to be called the White House detail of the
right,
agents in suits guarding the president.
right.
Well, now it's called the Presidential Protective Division, or PPD.
Okay. And
So,
when did it switch over to Homeland Security running it?
like
9/11.
2003, right after 9/11. He was for years, decades, generations. It was the Treasury Department. But after 9/11, they wanted an Office of Homeland Security. By the way, the Secretary of Homeland Security came out against the Secret Service, said this was abysmal. Why would they leave that line of sight from the roof? Even he's saying it. Yeah, I think it's either 2002 or 2003. I want to say 2003. It
Okay.
formally switched over to the Office of Homeland Security. So that's another thing too. To be fair, to a point, these guys are overworked with tremendous amount of overtime. They don't get to see their families for birthdays, Christmas, holidays. They're traveling all the time. They're stressed out. The burnout level is unbelievable. The divorce rate with Secret Service agents is unbelievable. And the story is out there now that supposedly Trump's main detail was decimated, and a lot of temps were in there. And I think what happened was they took a chance. They rolled the dice and said, hey, we're in Butler, Pennsylvania. This is overwhelmingly Trump country. We're out in the clear blue sky. Hey, we're good. Not realizing they left this building open, and just if they would have covered that building, Trump gets out of there and it never happens. But
Well,
because they
how
left
about a
that,
mile away somebody launching a mortar?
you have that too. I know the
I mean,
advances.
which gets to the question I wanted to ask you. What
Sure.
is the periphery? What is the engagement limits? Is it based on where they are? I've heard
Yeah,
this all
it
weekend
is.
long, that it's based on where they are in terms of the periphery of coverage, Vince.
What it is, I make an analogy like this. It's anywhere between 200 to 400 yards. But however, now a big caveat is, let's say President Trump, he visits a baseball stadium and it's
Ah,
open air. It's not closed. Then
mhm.
you're fine. Open air. And there's a section that faces
Buildings,
the woods.
the woods. Okay.
That would be a vulnerable area that would have to be scoped out, manned by helicopters, drones, actual people in the woods, scouting it out, infrared, because that's the one area that, wow, we have this stadium 75% covered, but there's this one area of vulnerability. Trump's out there in this Butler, PA, like I said, 45 minutes north of Pittsburgh. Everything's good except for that building. That
The
even people,
building is, but I mean, the building
yeah,
is, and the water tower. I mean, you could have had a guy up on the water tower for
yeah,
coverage.
1-2
If
punch
you're
if the
going
other
to
one
say,
didn't.
no, but I'm saying just in terms of coverage by Secret Service, why was there
There
not
should have been
someone
Secret Service on the water
on the
tower,
water tower?
using
Is
the
what I'm saying.
visibility of
Yes,
everything
yes,
around to see
yes.
it.
Because you
Between
could walk
drones and,
around that water tower and get 360 visibility,
yes,
or
between,
as was mentioned by many people, drone coverage or thermal coverage from above.
yeah. Well, another thing too, the agents made a big mistake is that after the shooter was subdued, and to be fair, they did say, shooter down or he's down or whatnot. Well, they let Trump stand straight up as a stationary target. His chest and his face is
That was
exposed. If there
weird.
was another
That was
shooter,
weird.
why would they do it? Why would they let him dictate? The Secret Service is the boss of the president's protection, not the other way around. Although most people probably think, oh, it's the president, he's a lowly agent. It's not that.
They're
It's
not
not
big
the other
enough
way
to
around.
keep him
And they
down.
left him stationary. If there was another shooter to finish off the job, Trump's dead. What they should have immediately did, they did a great job at first. They got him down. He went down after he held his ear. He went down, and the agents all got around there. They should have just grabbed him like they did Dick Cheney after 9/11. It just his feet never touched the ground. They should have did the same thing with Trump. His feet never touched the ground. They go right to the SUVs, the black
SUV.
SUVs. Instead,
Yeah, it was kind
they
of
made
weird.
a
They could
huge
have lifted him
mistake.
up. Yeah.
It was like they let President Trump have a great, ironic, iconic
Vince,
Iwo Jima type of thing, his fist and, USA, fight, fight, fight. But at that time, he was exposed. So not only did they not cover the building and its horrible lapse of security, they left him a sitting duck by keeping him straight up. And I think that was a byproduct of these agents that were not, they were kind of green around the
they're
gills.
physically
They weren't experienced.
incapable. Vince, he's 6'3". They're too small. That's one of
Yeah,
the big
these female
arguments.
agents, especially, were very short.
He's
And
also
they
an
did-
80-year-old man, Eric. So I mean,
Oh, come on. Have you read? I've been around older men, and they can be quite strong, especially with adrenaline.
Thank you. You finally admit it. Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you.
There you
Yeah,
go.
and there's other things too. Is crazy is that I'm sure you guys know about this. Is that QAnon's fake JFK Vince Fusco was there? Did you know about
What?
that?
No,
Yes,
Yeah, he was
I
standing in
know.
that. Yeah, it's definitely him. Because there's pictures of before the rally. He's sitting there glad handing people smiling. He's standing behind Trump. He's on Trump's right, which would be camera left. He's there. What the QAnon folks think is JFK Jr. Vincent Fusco is there.
Mhm.
And
whatever.
yeah,
Well,
Paul
let's
Landis is
switch
coming out,
over.
too.
Let's
Yeah,
switch
sure.
over to JFK because I wanted to get into
Sure.
JFK while you're here.
Oh, sure.
And I wanted to talk about we've had this conversation before, you and I, about how many people were in on it. I think we were basically on the same page. It was one or two different agents that we both agreed, Vince, were in on it.
Yeah.
And whatever you want to define in on it, let's go over your personal greatest hits album of who you believe compromised in some way the operation on November 22nd, 1963, even before Dallas, Vince, going into it on, an advanced team, let's say. Go ahead.
There's three agents, only three. Okay, so out of the several hundred, at that time, there's about 350 agents of the Secret Service. Okay, and it was roughly between 36 to 40, maybe a little more or less of the White House detail. I'm blaming three agents. My suspects are Bill Greer, who was the driver of the presidential limousine. We'll get into the details in a second. Emery Roberts, who was the commander of the agents in the Secret Service follow-up car. Then Floyd Boring, who was the planner of the Texas trip from the Secret Service's point of view.
Right.
We'll start backwards. Floyd Boring. He was the planner of the Texas trip from the Secret Service point of view. This was buried in Jim Bishop's The Day Kennedy Was Shot. There he is. And he was a veteran of the assassination attempt against Truman. Well, he even admitted, and this only came out in 1999, thanks to yours truly getting it from the JFK Library. It was buried there from 1976. Floyd Boring admitted he was on all the advance work. He did all the advance work for President Kennedy's trips. The Truman Library oral history he gave in 1988 says the same thing. So this confirms what Jim Bishop put, that the planning of the Texas trip was left in the capable hands of Floyd Boring. Well, it turns out, and this is only from the late 90s on, files that were released because of the Assassination Records Review Board, Floyd Boring and Wynn Lawson, who was the lead advance agent, admitted they had many conversations back and forth about Dallas. So in those 3 weeks before the assassination, the Texas trips being planned, San Antonio, Houston, Fort Worth, Dallas, and the trip he never got to live to see, Austin. Well, they had advancement in each city, and Boring was working with all of them. And that's when you get into why weren't agents on the back of the car, or at least near the car? Why wasn't the bubble top used at least partial or full? Why wasn't a military aid in the limousine? Why weren't they going at a fast speed? Why was the overpass left open like that? Why weren't there many motorcycles surrounding the car? Why wasn't there good protective intelligence? Supposedly found no threats in Dallas. I make the analogy. That would be like former President Obama going to Mississippi. Yeah, they didn't find any threats for you. You're good to go here. Well, even Roy Kellerman admitted in his Warren Commission testimony that it was unusual. They didn't find any threats in Dallas, and Abraham Bolden said the same thing. Okay, so you have all that in a general sense. And again, I always make the analogy, and all these senators, Senator William Fulbright, Pierce Salinger, and others warned President Kennedy not to go to Dallas. This was like the Super Bowl. And instead of having Tom Brady, your star quarterback, which would be Jerry Bain, the head of the White House detail, was in Secret Service with FDR.
Let me just stop you right there about Jerry Bain, because
Sure.
he's eating lunch in D.C., takes that 3-week vacation, Vince, and he's not on your suspect list. He's on my list.
No, he's not. I think
he's on my list, Jerry Bain. I don't understand how he doesn't go to Dallas for the first time in his career, doesn't go with the president and takes his vacation. And you remember very well how he said, where'd you go for your vacation? He went nowhere. He was eating lunch in a restaurant. The whole vacation scenario seemed suspect, Vince.
Yeah, well, let's put it this way. You can't rule out anybody else. I'm just talking about my top 3 suspects. But Bain and Clint Hill in his books has even come out of this. This isn't like conspiracy nonsense. Sam Kinney, back in 1994, matter of factly told me that Jerry Bain, the head of the White House detail, took his first vacation since JFK was elected in November 1990, through and including the Dallas trip. He took his first vacation. That left Floyd Boring, who wasn't physically present in Texas.
That's right.
The Texas trip.
Where was Floyd Boring, Vince? Where was Floyd Boring?
He was in Maryland washing windows, allegedly. But the thing is, he was on the Tampa trip, November 18th, and that trip was beautiful security. I give that trip an A+.
Yeah.
28 miles of motorcade, longest domestic motorcade JFK ever had. Agents on the back of the car the whole time. Fast speeds of the car. Many motorcycles bracketing the limousine in a wedge formation, and military aid in between the driver and the agent in charge, who was Floyd Boring.
Let's just tell them who the military aid is. It's General Godfrey McHugh.
Godfrey was asked for the first time. Yeah,
for the first time in his career, he would have been sitting between Greer and Kellerman, Vince,
as he usually did.
And he was JFK's closest ally. He had actually been to college, as Godfrey McHugh right here. He'd actually been to school in France with Jackie Kennedy. They had gone to school together and may or may not have had a romantic liaison. He will also guard the body and the casket aboard Air Force One, Vince, as we recall.
He also said the back of the head was gone too. Yep.
Right. And Godfrey McHugh is removed. I mentioned that as a part of stripping, Vince.
Oh, yeah. No, you know that. In fact, Godfrey McHugh admitted in 1976 to Canadian radio and 1978 to the House Select Committee, he was asked for the first time not to ride in the car as he normally did, taking notes. He was there all the time on trips. In fact, prior trips, you see Clifton or McHugh sitting there. There's a few times they weren't, but most of the time they were. He said the Secret Service did not want him to be there to accentuate full exposure. Also out of the way, the witness that would have been out of the way, and also out of harm's way too. And again, with not enough motorcycles surrounding the car, professional law enforcement, armed officers.
Let's talk about that, because I wanted to ask you about Captain Will Fritz's homicide, automatic weapon, cops in a car that was supposed to be right, Vince? And that was moved. Go ahead.
Absolutely right, Mark. Yeah, Will Fritz, during his Warren Commission testimony, talked about having a detective's car. Police Chief Curry wanted a police car, and this is not. This is in addition to the Secret Service car. In fact, Secret Service reports that came out in the 90s, thanks to the ARB, the ones that weren't shredded, shows in Chicago in March of 1963, he had a detective's car filled with armed officers in addition to the Secret Service follow-up car. So, bottom line, under oath, Will Fritz and Chief Curry wanted those cars here, but the Secret Service took them away. In fact, Seth Cantor's a famous note in one of the Warren Commission volumes said that Will Fritz's car canceled at the last minute the night before by the Secret Service. So
wasn't it pushed back in back of LBJ's car?
Yeah, basically there was no police in the motorcade at all. There was not, other than Chief Curry in the lead car. In the few motorcycle officers there was nobody in the motorcade per se. Kind of Texas Highway Patrolman driving the car and stuff, but nobody.
Let's talk about the increased security that the Dallas Morning News talked about. This being, I forget the actual words they used.
Secret Service, sure, all secure. Is that the
you are all secure, but there was also the fact that this was going to be the most guarded parade of all time. The Dallas Morning News, 10/26/63, saying the greatest concentration of Dallas police ever was the headline.
It was it was actually the worst. Not only do we have the famous Roger Craig stating in the 70s that Sheriff Decker gathered all the sheriffs, says we're not to participate in any way in securing that motorcade. Well, it turns out there's a report in the Warren Commission volumes where Sheriff Decker told Forrest Sorrells, the head of the Dallas Secret Service office, he was going to offer, like, I think it was like 12 or 20 additional sheriff's department people, but yet they weren't there. They were just standing on the steps on Main Street watching the motorcade go by. They weren't part of security.
Oh, right.
And then, like I said, in my first book, Survivor's Guilt, it talks about how other officers said there was no special security at all. In fact, I was just sitting at home when the assassination occurred. And that's why there was such a lack of Dallas police officers along the motorcade route. The few that weren't facing the crowds. They were facing the president. So it was meaningless. If something was going on in a building or in the crowd, them facing the president, where they were no better than a spectator. At that
didn't
point,
Kellerman
that
famously
happened in
say?
Reagan too, by the way.
Oh, really? Didn't
One of
Kellerman?
the guy getting shot was facing Reagan, and
Weird.
he got shot. Sorry.
Yes.
Didn't Kellerman famously
Delahan
say? Kellerman famously talk about the stringent security to Siebert and O'Neill, the two FBI agents, and then lied about it later.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, Vince.
You're absolutely right. Seibert and O'Neill swear that's what he said on the night of the autopsy when JFK's dead body's lying there. Roy Kellerman, I guess, worried about covering his butt. He says that, oh, yeah, the advanced security arrangements were most stringent and thorough ever performed in the Secret Service, when actually that is such a ludicrous. The security was horrible. And again, you have to look no further than compare not only some of the prior Texas stops, but just Tampa, 28 miles long. Every multi-story building was guarded by manned officers. I spoke to the head lead advanced motorcycle officer, Russell Groubert, and he said every multi-story building was guarded with men to the teeth with tonsils of machine gun, their own pistols, other rifles. If anything untoward would have even began to occur, they were to shoot to kill. And it turns out in the late 90s, one of the Secret Service documents that didn't hit the shredder is the Tampa survey report by the Secret Service. It says, matter of factly, the sheriff's department would secure all the rooftops in the Tampa area. So again, they could afford to do that 4 days before in Tampa, 28 miles long. The motorcade in Dallas was like about a third of that, or like a half of it. It was like between 11 and 13 miles an hour off the top of my head.
Also, was the end of the line there in Dealey Plaza in terms of people.
11,
but I mean,
I think
even Detective Gus Rose said he heard nothing about increased security.
You're exactly right. And so no buildings were guarded. And even if a few people out there believe Oswald Alone was part of it, well, it would have been aborted. They would have saw in the building and said, hey, there's someone there. Not just some of the civilians, the Arnold Rollins, that said, look, I think there's a security guard up there. Well, just like those people with the Trump rally, you would have had some, actually this history repeat itself or lack thereof. If they would have been guarding Dealey Plaza like they normally did, like they did 4 days before. And by the way, in San Antonio, this came out in 2013, National Geographic documentary, JFK, His Final Hours. It shows color police film. They're in a police helicopter in San Antonio the day before filming the motorcade.
Wow.
And then in Fort Worth that morning, Secret Service agent Mike Howard talks matter of factly how they had the building rooftops guarded in Fort Worth to the point we had Boy Scouts up there. We had everybody we could think it had a pulse.
Well, they had firemen guarding him when they went to the cellar, Vince, to go drinking, right?
9 agents drinking the night before, including Clint Hill and Paul Landis, authors. Well, not and Jack Reddy and Glenn Bennett, 4 guys in the fob car. But the big thing is, many people think that guarding rooftops was response to the assassination. Like, oh, Vince, it only happened after assassination. I found out this happened during FDR, Truman, Eisenhower, and all through JFK.
There's photographs of that.
Domestic.
Let me ask you this, and I wanted to get into this because of the similarities with the Trump situation. We talked about the snipers that were there. As far as I know, and you're going to probably, of course, remember this, the only sniper that I know is Harry Weatherford, the deputy sheriff who's on top of the county jail, Vince. Is there a sniper in Dealey Plaza, an official sniper?
I know Penn Jones first reported that. I know Harry Livingston and other authors ran with it. It really makes you think that, Mark, you're on something, that there could have been like an unofficial sharpshooter up there, just like the agents, behind the knoll, all the people running, Joe Marshall Smith running into an agent, Secret Service agent, when officially no Secret Service agents are stationed there. And many people for years said that's a fake agent. Could it have been these were real agents and they were caught in the hands of the cookie jar afterwards and they couldn't admit
there's
that
also,
they were there?
I mean, Colonel Jones talked about 12 military intelligence operatives that he had sent 8 to 12 in plain clothes that were using military ID or Secret Service adjuncts working for the Secret Service. But let me just get back to
photo of
let me
the depository. Good. I'm sorry.
let me just get back to Harry Weatherford for a second. The deputy
Sure.
sheriff who sources Penn Jones, as you mentioned, the OG Penn Jones, which I recommend. He says Harry Weatherford was up there with a sniper rifle, and he had received a silencer, probably from Werbil, the week before for his rifle. And there's also right. And there's also testimony that a younger deputy sheriff came up onto the rooftop to assist him at the end, grabbed his rifle, and it was hot, that the barrel was hot. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
That particular detail I've not heard, no.
Okay, well, I just wanted to put that out there because I have information about that. And then on his deathbed, Weatherford claiming, "I've killed a lot of people."
He said something like, "You little son of a bitch, I've killed lots of people." That's in Livingstone.
Well, what do you make of that? I mean,
it's definitely grist for the mill again, because you got to keep in mind, most of the officers in Dallas, not all, but most of them were members of the John Birch Society. Some of the members were KKK. Even like Bill Alexander, assistant DA, said, a quote from him back in like the millennium was like, "No one gives a rat's ass about JFK getting his ass wiped in Dallas, getting killed in Dallas." And even Detective Lavelle said some kind of, he said, "This was nothing more than, I can't say the N word, an N killing in Dallas, as far as I'm concerned."
Well,
so there's not a lot of love for Dallas.
No, I know. Let's go back to Robert Jones, the colonel, military intelligence.
Sure.
I think it's 112th military out of San Antonio.
Yeah.
And Captain James Powell, who worked under him.
Took the photo of the depository. Yeah.
What do you make of that?
I think it's smoking gun evidence.
As an adjunct of Secret Service coverage or not coverage. I don't know what to make of it.
They were either there officially or unofficially, and after the assassination, they didn't want to admit they were there in an official capacity, just like Glenn Bennett, who was a member of the Protective Research Section, was riding in the fob car in Dallas. He was on the Florida trip. He lied under oath to the House Select Committee. It only came out in the late 1990s and said he was. He did admit to the fact he was also on the New York trip before. He was riding on all these stops in Florida, Texas, and New York, riding in the fob car. And I think the reason why was it's in my new book coming out. These were covert monitors of threats in progress. In other words, the Secret Service was aware of moral threats to the president, and they were there. Glenn Bennett was the major one. There was also Howard K. Norton was another Protective Research Section agent.
Okay, I was just going to ask you about Howard K. Norton.
There in Austin.
Let's get into Norton, and I don't mean Norton with Cramden and the Honeymooners. I mean Howard K. Norton, who was secretly sent to Austin. Vince.
Yes.
And what was he doing in Austin?
And I can't stress for your viewers, listeners, these documents only came out in the late 1990s, and only like a nerd like me would have even noticed who these people were. Even when they did come out, the silence was deafening from research community because they weren't interested in the Secret Service. So those names might have just been Joe Blow, Joe Smith. They didn't know. But I was like, I can't believe this. What's Howard K. Norton, a PRS desk agent, doing?
Well, he was also a security tech, wasn't he, Vince?
He was the first technician of the Secret Service. He detected a Russian planted spy device in the UN. In fact, Dale Wunderlich was a fellow
in the seal of the United States, right?
You got it.
It was in the embassy in Moscow.
Yep. Dale Wunderlich, I spoke to him in about 2009. He confirmed Howard Wunderlich's bona fides, and he was mystified why he was there. And when I started to interview a lot of people about Glenn Bennett, this is also recapitulated in the new book coming out about these covert monitors of threats to the president in progress. A lot of these agents got real amnesia about Glenn Bennett, and I don't know what he was there for. I don't remember him, but one agent, Jerry O'Rourke, famously said,
"That was my
I don't want to
question.
do it. I don't want to do it. I'm afraid for my agency." And he hung up on me.
What's the deal with Jerry O'Rourke, bro? Gerald O'Rourke. What was the deal?
He's one of about half a dozen agents who came out and believed there's a conspiracy, took the life of JFK.
Yes.
So if anybody, you would think he'd be a friendly contact, and he was very friendly until I mentioned Glenn Bennett. And out of nowhere, he said, "I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I'm afraid for my agency." Click, hung up. What is that about?
One of the overview of your work that I've always seen with these agents is they contradict themselves, lie, and then you bore in and find the contradictions and go at them, and you have so many times where they say one thing and then say the opposite. And your genius is to drill down to find where it's one-on-one and then get them to change their story. Is that a fair assessment of your work?
I appreciate it, Mark. Thanks. Yeah, I could just state for your viewers, listeners, that everybody talks about Cyber Neo report for David Lifton was his coming out moment. My coming out moment was September 27th, 1992. I was only 26 at the time, fresh from a trip to Cancun. Some things were bugging me about the Secret Service, so I got bold. I had a job at the time. I did a lot of cold calling, so I started to phone these agents. This is before the internet really kicked into his primitive bulletin boards. For the most part, you're just down direct to your assistants and cold calling. I spoke to the head of the White House detail, Gerald Bain, and I said, Mr. Bain, sir, he was very friendly, and he was only like 76 at the time, and we're talking about things. I said that, from reading William Manchester's best-selling book and Jim Bishop and the Warren Report, it seems like President Kennedy had ordered you agents off the car, and he cut me up and goes, I don't remember Kennedy ever saying anything about not having agents on the back of the car. If you look at the newsreels, you'll see agents there. I got caught in my, I couldn't believe it. This is unbelievable. This agent, the number one agent, not like a buck private. This is the number one agent, Kennedy's detail, telling me, a stranger on the phone.
Right.
Kennedy ever say anything about not having agents on the back of the car? Well, then I started to contact his associates, Floyd Boring, the list goes on, Win Lawson, Art Godfrey,
Well, the initial footage, the initial footage we showed is Emory Roberts getting Lawton and Ripka off of the, Ripka is the one hunching his shoulders? That's Ripker, Vince?
That's Don Lawton, and there was some confusion, but I got
Yeah.
vindicated later on. Here's to make a long story very short for your listeners, because even some of your viewers might be wanting Vince. I thought you used to say it was Henry Ripka. Now you're saying it's Don Lawton. It was both of them. What it was they both. There's still photos and motion picture of Henry Ribka, Agent Ribka, and Agent Don Lawton walking with the limousine together. But when the black and white newsreels stop, you only see Don Lawton from that point on. And he's the famous agent who raises his hand 3 times, and Emory Roberts rises his seat and goes like this. Well, Don Lawton, he told a colleague of his, it was an Idaho newspaper, obscure ones, that I should have been there. I should have been there in the back of the car. He wrote on the back of the car the 28-mile Tampa motorcade. He wrote on the back of the car in Chicago in March '63. So in fact, when I spoke to him tragically in 1995, I did not know he was the agent recalled in the video, in the famous black and white video. But he said to me, well, you always have regrets and remorse. Who knows? If only they would have left guys in the back of the car. You can hindsight yourself to death. So he's even admitting Secret Service, if they would have left guys in the back of the car, as opposed to saying, oh, President Kennedy ordered us off. None of the that's another thing. All these agents in different parts of the country, it's like they were reading cue cards. A little old amateur stranger like me. And now, what was the normal reaction if you get cold calls? Get serious. I'm not telling you anything. I don't know you from Adam. Well, all these old men were telling me, there's no truth to it. And no one was raining on my parade. And that's when I said, geez, this is a book. This is something. I can tell you something right now, Eric and Mark. If they would have towed the official line, even if it was a lie, there'd be no book. There'd be no Vince Palamara. I would have went off to do something else. It was only because this direct, stark contradiction. And the contradiction started. Like, in other words, I always tell people.
They had never gotten their story straight, Vince.
And a lot of them were never interviewed. Yeah, a lot of them were never interviewed.
And they were at the end of their lives. You got them before they died.
Yeah, literally. Gerald Bain, thank God, got an audio tape. He died 6 months later. I got him on audio tape, thank God. Otherwise, people would be like, how do we know he really said that, Vince?
Is that on YouTube?
YouTube video. It's on YouTube. All my the surviving audio clips of the ones I do have are all on my YouTube channel. Yeah, and all
tell us about Stu Knight. What do you know anything about?
Oh yeah, I know a lot. I thought you meant Stu Knight. You mean Stu Knight, who was the head of the vice president LBJ?
Yeah. Did he go to the Benelux countries with LBJ?
Yes,
he did.
Early
go
November.
With
Yeah, and the thing is, he was supposed to be on the Texas trip, but he decided to wait because his transfer was going to become official November 25th. That Monday, he was going to another division of the Secret Service, but he was still technically the head of the vice president's detail. Instead, Rufus Youngblood went in his place. And again, just like no Jerry Bain and Floyd Boring for JFK's detail, you had a third stringer, Roy Kellerman, first major trip on his own. Again, I made that analogy before. I was trying to, like, Tom Brady. Oh, Tom, I know it's a Super Bowl. Sit down. We're going to have the third stringer go in your place. Sound good? Can you imagine
Stu Knight is the same way. I mean, they're replacing him with a rookie, with Rufus
who ended up replacing him. Who ended up replacing him the day of JFK's funeral, the 25th. Well, they ended up being the head of the White House detail. He actually leapfrog from not the
Yeah,
VP detail. It was a presidential detail now of LBJ, and he was the head of it.
yeah.
And Stu Knight went to the gold division. They investigated like fraud with gold and other monetary means, and he considered it a demotion. This came out in the House Select Committee. That Stu Knight, it was through other people, Thomas Kelly.
Well, didn't Abraham Bolden get sent down to check forgery after the White House detail?
Yeah, what happened was he was there for a 30-day. Abraham Bolden was the first African American member of the Pinkerton Detective Agency.
Yep.
He was an African American member of the Chicago State Police. He had all these
Illinois State
credentials.
Police, yeah.
Yeah, Illinois State Police, and he goes to the White House detail for his 30-day temporary assignment that could have been full time. But he started to realize that they're drinking on duty. They're having all these lavish sex parties, and they were very racist towards them. Harvey Henderson, he got vindicated too.
Harvey Henderson, right. Harvey Henderson, yeah.
In documents only released like about 2009. So it turns out the Secret Service in 1967 were investigating Abraham Bolden's claims. They found out Harvey Henderson was indeed on his shift. He was a temporary member of, and I bring that up because Gerald Blaine of the Kennedy detail and some other people said that Abraham Bolden's full of it, that Harvey Henderson wasn't even on his shift. Turns out these are showing Harvey Henderson was his boss, and Harvey Henderson was calling him the N-word.
Oh, yeah.
There was a new slate on his desk. So Abraham Bolden didn't leave the detail out of incompetence.
JFK found him. He found him in the men's room.
Yeah, in Chicago. It said,
in Chicago, right?
You want to become the Jackie Robinson.
Jackie Robinson of the Secret Service. Yeah, his lawyer contacted us after our episode and thanked us for doing the Abraham Bolden episode, which is on our site here.
Well, Abraham Bolden's going to get a lot of corroboration in my book coming out. And
so it's not just. Did you go into the Black article from the Chicago Reader?
Oh yeah, and there's corroboration for that too. Some people on the other side try to say it's just Abraham Bolden's word against the world, or just this Black article that really had Abraham Bolden as the source. It wasn't the only source. There were several sources to that.
The Black article has been the gold standard for many years.
No, they're going to get some corroboration when my book comes out. Yeah, they're going to see some stuff. There's some stuff that was a total fluke. There was not going to be a 6th book. I was done at 5 books. That was it. Yeah. But something transpired last year that made it.
Yeah, you told us you were done. You told us you were retiring.
I was, honest to God. I even went on a little retirement tour. When I say retirement, I mean literally like I was done. I'd still speak about my 5 books and still be out there. But as far as writing another book, I was done. And something happened last year. I can't say right now. I just got to wait till October. But people will see right at the beginning of the book. They're going to go, wow. Okay, now I can see why you wrote another book. And then there's corroborative evidence. There's actually books filled with documents and excerpts and stuff, so it's not a question of.
Well, there are these other plots. I mean, what other cities are you talking about? You're talking about Montreal, perhaps? Are you talking about Tampa? Are you talking about Miami? I mean,
New York, Milwaukee,
New York.
Yeah, there was mortal threats to JFK all the way around. So it's gets strange that Oswald acted alone in Texas when he had a whole bunch of other buddies and other towns doing things, and some have connections and.
The similarities between Oswald and the man apprehended in Chicago are enormous.
Thomas Arthur Valley.
Arthur Valley. Where does he disappear to, Vince? Arthur Valley seems to dissipate into the whispers of time. He leaves Illinois, goes out west or something, and never really found again.
2 major footnotes to it in 1975 for that Edwin Black article you're mentioning, the Chicago Independent. They interviewed, he was really down on it. Like, I think he was living in a trailer, was broke. Yeah. And he matter of factly, Thomas Arthur Valley said, the plot to kill Kennedy in Chicago, Soldiers Field. And he admitted he worked for the CIA. He trained anti-Castro Cubans.
Yes.
He was at a CIA base in Japan.
Yes,
I think it was Camp Atsu and it was Camp Atsugi base for Oswald.
Yeah,
so they both had this bizarre background
outside of Tokyo. Yeah, Oswald was infiltrating Tokyo communist cells out of Atsugi, and I think Valley was there too.
Yeah, and this whole 3-name thing: Lee Harvey Oswald, John Wilkes Booth.
Look, Thomas Arthur Valley. Crooks put an end to that.
Thomas
Does he have
Matthew
a middle name?
Crooks.
Matthew Crooks. Okay, well, maybe we've got some super chats, Eric. I don't know what's going on, and maybe have some questions for Vince. Sometimes they have to They put
We
them
have
up
a
in the,
ton of super chats, Vince. So if you
or,
could tolerate us,
Vince, if you could stick around, there might be some questions you can answer that we would rather have
Sure.
you answer than me
Oh
answer when
yeah,
you're done.
ask away. It's fine.
all right. First thing before I get into the super chats, because I want to get this out, there is a link to Vince's book. You can pre-order it now. It is in the description, both on YouTube and on Rumble. I've been getting it there in the background, so I also pinned it to the chat
Beautiful.
in YouTube. So
If you
while
see,
we're collecting money, getting super chats, I want people to have an opportunity to pre-order Vince's book. It makes a big difference because if you pre-order his book and there's a big pile of orders, when the first day it comes out, it helps it climb up the charts right away. So pre-ordering makes a huge difference for him, and then he can display it as a bestseller. So
if you run
please
into
help him
Robert,
get to that.
if you run into Bob Groden, ask him how many books he sold from his appearance on the show afterwards.
Oh, I'll have
when he
to.
was on
you
here.
guys were tremendous for me the last time. Oh my
Groden, I think
Lord!
Groden just couldn't even fulfill the orders. So I hope everyone will
was a huge
pre-order
spike after
Vince's
last
bill.
show.
What's that?
It was a huge spike in sales after you guys last
good,
show. I really
good,
appreciate
good.
it, man. Thanks.
I think the same thing happened with DiEugenio with his book with Paul Blau.
I can imagine. I love Jim DiEugenio and Bob Groden are great. Love them guys.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you can do that, and please consider doing it, because if you can get them pre-sold day one, you get them out of print on the.
Are you going to go to
run.
Dallas, by the way? Are you doing anything this fall?
Maybe remote. I don't know about in person.
Okay.
I'm kind of got some other plans going on, and when my mom passed away, my dad, I kind of have taken care of him. It's kind of tough to go in person to conferences. Might be doing some local. I actually got an invite today from Dealey Plaza, UK, and England for remote, so I'll at least got that going. So yeah.
Okay. All
right. So I'm going to try to run through these quickly, folks. If I'm short shrifting, there's just a lot here, and I apologize deeply. New member Richard Wagner, thank you very much. Simon James with 10 memberships, thank you. These memberships help us a ton. That's a lot of money, Simon. I do deeply appreciate it. I know Mark does as well. Dr. Evil 814 said, did the Secret Service go out to the strip club the night before?
The one under Trump or the one back then?
Good question. I don't know about Trump's.
Yeah. Well, they did it under Obama too in Cartagena, Colombia. 9 agents did that Cartagena, Colombia. Heads rolled in that. And one of them was the father of a JFK agent, which is crazy. But the morning of the assassination, agents went to the Fort Worth Press Club and the cellar. And it turns out from several newsmen said they were bombed at the cellar. Yeah, the cellar on the record only sold chasers like or fruit juice. But under the table, you could bring your own alcohol. But they were drinking at the Fort Worth Press Club, and they went to the cellar. 9 agents admitted drinking in like a limited hangout. 4 of them rode in the fob car, including everybody's hero, Clint Hill, and the other one, Paul Landis of book fame, last year. And, it's just crazy because it's grounds for removal from the Secret Service, drinking while on travel status.
Well, they suffered enough, didn't they, Vince? According to...
I know.
According to Rowley, who testified before the Warren Commission, that they were shamed enough.
What a whitewash. In today's world, those guys would have lost their pension, lost their
job. I don't know, Vince.
I don't know, Vince.
We have a director who said the buck stops with her, and she's not leaving.
She's not leaving, Vince.
Yeah, come on. I don't know. Pamela Clifton, hello, guys. And tell Vince hello from Pam.
Hey,
see that? Crossover.
Okay. John, and thank you very much. That's a generous tip. Pamela's had given us a lot. John Cole. Hi, guys. I feel like I'm in a time machine via 1963. Great show.
It's happened in 2024, so I don't know. The time machine is going back and forth.
Yeah, timeless. Adam Child, I'm back. I follow you on X, as you know. Oh, okay. I noted. I don't get YouTube alerts anymore. Question: was a sniper eating lunch while waiting for 45?
You're Trump, like Oswald or something. Allegedly, it turned to be.
Well, it's a reference to Bonnie Ray Williams.
Bonnie Ray Williams,
yeah, it was chicken sandwich,
chicken
leg sandwich.
Full view of everybody going up the ladder and crawling like this on the roof. But yeah, good.
Yeah. Blaine, Mark, can I borrow some gold bars and 480,000 in cash next time you're in New Jersey?
It's a funny thing about Menendez. He originally said that he kept the gold bars in his refrigerator because of leaving Cuba and under Castro, under his regime and fear of banks
What a
because of
crook.
the crash.
Well,
of the
hold on.
gas-
Fannie Willis said keep all the cash in the house.
Yeah, you got to. Well, gold bars though, man. I would love to see those. Wasn't there a guy in New Orleans who had cash in his icebox also?
Not sure right off.
Joel Sane, I've been looking forward to hearing from AUS after Saturday's nonsense. Thank you. Doc 5758, Alex Jones stated on the Tim Dillon podcast that the deep state will come after him again until they neutralize him.
I wouldn't be surprised. They're coming after everybody.
Yeah.
Let's hope not. I mean, or they fail. Steve McMahon, the kids' MK Ultra conditioning wasn't complete.
You know, when they call you school shooter as your nickname, Vince, in high school,
Not a good sign.
not a good sign.
Not a good sign. No, weird. Oh, it's another thing too. He failed his high school rifle.
Right.
He got
class,
better.
and they all said he was a bad shot. But yet
That wasn't
he
a bad shot.
shot a superhuman within a millimeter of ending the life of the president. That's a tremendously good shot. How did he go from bad shot, couldn't get in the rifle team, to now 2 years later he's world-class Olympian? Kind of sounds like someone we know. Oswald,
also,
allegedly, you know.
Yeah, good point. And by the way,
Sounds like
he
a
not
high
only
school-
not only had a close shot to Trump, but that was after. Remember, a cop confronted him. This is on the record.
Yes.
The cop confronted him. He pointed the rifle. Cop backs off. Boom, boom, boom. So he didn't even have a lot of aiming time. He was under an incredible amount of pressure.
Wow.
That was way too close for
And
a
the people
guy
down
who
below
failed.
saying there's someone up there, there's someone up there, someone shooting officers, there's someone up there, you know. So yeah.
There was a
Definitely.
guy in high school whose father was the rifle team coach, Eric, remember?
Yeah,
And that was
he's a
Alec
good shot
Baldwin.
too.
Alec Baldwin was his father was the rifle team coach.
Well, that's one of the
Massive
freaky
people.
things. Think about it. Alec Baldwin got off the day before Alec Baldwin played Trump. Anyway, there's all these weird little cosmic parallels that have nothing to do with anything. That's just a weird, creepy coincidence.
Yeah.
Melania Trump's mother died 2 years to the day before this happened.
Wow.
I don't think it was her mother. I think it was the mother. Of
She said it was her mother. She said my
No,
mother
it
was looking down
It
on
was
me.
Ivana Trump. It was the actual Trump's
Oh.
first wife.
Oh,
It was
wow.
Trump's wife
Oh,
who died.
still though, yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I knew
Well, look at the
somebody.
assassin being from my hometown. That's grist from the mill people out there. Hey, Vince Palamara, that assassin lives 5 minutes away from him. And, yeah, so that's weird. Ooh, that's strange.
Well, I've got a fan of the show who was a witness that I interviewed today, talking about how he spent, years and years all following JFK, only to be at an event like this, which was surreal for him.
Phew.
Al Gonzalez, classic let it happen behavior by the Secret Service with a patsy in place. They let Trump stand up instead of scoop and run, which is how we are trained in NYPD intel.
Good
That's
comment,
weird.
Al. Yeah, he's right. Yep.
Al's New York City Police Intelligence Unit. But I was wondering, Al, if that's standard operating procedure, not to let the guy up, but to slide him out of harm's way horizontally.
Well, it was both, because they did everything right. They had him down, that banner going across the steel. So
Yeah.
as long as he was down there, they were on top. Then,
Yes.
and my witness said, you heard on the radio, shoot her down. Then they moved Trump. So, but they were kind of poor, and they let him get up. And I just think he overpowered them. I'm sorry,
Could very
I
well
just
be. I agree. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy how that happened. Yeah.
Ekrendal, I think this kid just wanted to delete himself and go down infamy. He saw one of the world's most famous men was coming to town, and off he went. Very possible, but he did plan. He planned. There was obvious planning. He could not have just woke up that morning and said, you know what? It might be fun to go down there. He obviously had to scope it out. He had to climb the building, rehearse it, know the area.
Bring in
There's
a
no
ladder. And
Yeah.
know
How
into that
long ago
room.
was this announced that he was going to your town, Vince? Do you remember any coverage in Butler?
I started hearing something about it roughly about a month ago.
Oh, okay. So
like
that's a
he was
long
coming.
amount of time. That's a
Yeah,
good
at
amount
least
of
a
time.
month. And he's coming to Butler. And I'm like, oh, Butler. I said, that's Trump country up there. He'll be good. See, again, that's probably why he did this, because he realized, oh, this is Trump country. I can really, like, people won't, it'd be like JFK in Boston. Oh, he's in safe territory. He's in Boston.
Oh,
Well,
interesting.
up in Butler is very pro-Trump area of
Right,
Pennsylvania.
right.
Yeah.
This is a great question. It's not a super chat, but how hot was the roof?
Jeez.
It looked like a metal
tin
roof, and I
Looked like a
heard it
metal
was.
roof. Yeah.
I heard it was awful. The witness said it was really, really brutally hot while he
You know
was
what?
there. So
Didn't he have long sleeves, Thomas?
I think he did.
I think he did long pants on for sure. I think he did have long
And
sleeves.
in light colors too, and whites.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
tan, white and tan.
Yeah, this is crazy.
That'll help you blend a little bit.
Steve McMahon, if those leprechaun women had been guarding a 6'4" Trump any lower, he would have had to pay them hush money. Oh, but a bump. All right. John Kell, my first super chat. Great research and insightfully informative. Sorry. Huge fan. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
God
Thanks,
bless.
John. Thank you.
Mo Bishop, all the major news outlets were covering the Trump rally live. Has that ever happened before? Yes.
When
I
you
think
say
they were
major,
starting to.
the major news outlets, what do they mean by major?
Well, but
news
for a
outlets?
while,
Oh,
all the Trump
CNN was
rallies were being
live.
relegated or cut off, and they just
Why
were
was CNN
covering
covering it all of a sudden?
Yeah, all of a sudden, I tell you what, I noticed it too. And people
Yeah.
that are pro Biden are
post-debate.
saying that CNN's really, it was post debate. You hit the nail on the head. They're now
Post-debate.
starting to show a lot more things in entirety now. In fact, to tell you something about that day, my wife and I were actually watching it because they were talking about people that were collapsing in the heat. Oh, heat stroke. Oh boy. And
Right.
that's when the lady, one of the reporters said, there's some sort of disturbance here. And we're like, what? And the rest of you guys don't know. But the first thing was about the intense heat. And yeah, ever since the debate, they show Biden's things in entirety, and they're showing Trump in entirety. Where before it used to be a little
Oh, I didn't know
soundbite.
that.
Now
I
they
didn't
want
know
to catch gaffes. They want to see what each other's talking about.
Okay. All right.
That's why they were there.
That's fair.
Okay. And people were wondering about, has this been live before? Well, yeah. When Reagan came out of the Hilton there, March 3rd, 1981, that was live. There was television cameras recording him. He just spoke to the AFI-CIO, the union, and he came out, and yeah, they were filming live as that happened. And also Robert Kennedy, candidate Kennedy back in 1968, that was live. Thanks to all you, and it's on to Chicago, let's win this and all that. That was live. George Wallace was live down there. It was local when he was shot and paralyzed.
Yeah.
But this one had high def cameras all over the place.
Yes.
Well, what about the two Ford assassination attempts? The Squeaky Fromme one and the Susan what's her name one. Was that
Sarah
filmed?
Jane Moore, both in
Sarah Jane Moore and Squeaky, were those filmed?
They were definitely filmed.
He was coming out of a hotel too, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it was live, but they were 100% filmed. We have film
Okay.
of both of them. It was before videotape, so they were.
Those are the still pictures, probably.
No.
There's footage.
okay.
There's footage.
There's motion film of
There's
Squeaky
motion
Fromme.
film about.
And Larry Boondorf is the one who grabbed Squeaky Fromme so she couldn't fire. And there's also film of her by the tree in handcuffs, the red dress. But then Sarah Jane Moore is the one who took a shot across the street. Ron Pontius of the JFK
That's
details.
in San Francisco, right? Was that
San Francisco? And it was a former Marine, Larry Sipple, that grabbed her arm to make her misfire.
Yeah.
So it was
one of them, the gun fell apart. One of them was, I think, the barrel fell out of the gun.
It was Squeaky Fromme. The gun wouldn't fire. It didn't fire. And she was planning on killing Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin, and she couldn't get close, so she was going to kill a president, just like John Hinckley. He was going to kill President
Nixon,
Carter.
right?
He was going to kill Carter.
Oswald was going to kill Nixon, according to the early Marine Oswald.
Crap.
Yeah, I know, but that was in there.
That's the official.
Right. Justin Wright, videotape CS agents did not engage Crook.
Yeah,
if they had, Crook would have been unrecognizable due to being missing a different agent officer engaged. That I had some experts on.
Who killed him?
That's what
it was the counter sniper team. The front. There was two men up there. One was kind of more hunched down. The one who actually goes, I guess, in the videos you see this. He goes like, and then goes like this. That's the one who took him out.
With problem with iron sights.
Oh, and those scopes are. That's what
the scopes were actually a problem, and that's something that I've discussed with snipers.
Those,
which is a problem, Vince. Right, but that's the problem because the perspective is too narrow. And I interviewed a sniper, and he talked about that. Like he has to throw it away, and he has to have lower magnification. If they're looking beyond there, it's like a cropped view, like you said, freckles. But if the freckles are above him, they're looking like a mile behind him.
Yeah.
And to pull it in, iron sights are even better, like I qualified with in the Army. I mean, I qualified at these distances. They're easy.
Wow.
That was a very easy distance. 140 is one of the minors. It's 50, 100, 200, 300, 400 yards or meters. It was meters when I was in.
I think that kind of, like Mark said earlier in the show, I think what it was a situation where that counter sniper was very well trained and everything. And I think for a split second, the human mind kicked in and said, that has to be an officer. That has to be covered. And he goes, Jesus, it's not. And he sees the rifle and that. And I think that's a little bit, luckily his delay didn't cost the life of Trump. But yeah, that was about it.
I think you're right, Vince. That was my first instinct, that this guy was stunned for a second, you know, I mean, or a couple of seconds, saying this, you know, am I going to kill this guy who may be a cop, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, there's other claims. I don't think they're likely. The whole had to verify to engage, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, that's not true.
No,
that's not true. They have the authority to shoot to kill, because in that time, what are they going to do? Get in the walkie-talkie or on the transmitter? Do we have authorization to kill? By that time, it's too late. He's dead. I mean, you have to do what you have to. Oh no,
it just wouldn't work. It wouldn't work time-wise.
Again, though, the failure. I mean, like the sniper, we can pick on them a bit, but real failures. How the hell was he up there to begin with? I think anybody, you know, that's just the bottom line. That's number one. He should not have been there. Period.
Well, the early reconnaissance is a failure too, as Vince pointed out.
Well, he was there a half hour prior. That's the crazy thing, is it has come out now. He was there on the roof half hour prior.
No, but I'm talking about a few days before when they were.
Well, also there's that too. Yeah,
he was at the magnetometers acting strange. He was on law enforcement's radar for a half hour before, and the people in the crowd, while Trump's still talking, said, "There's someone on the roof. There's someone on the roof," and they're in the iPhone videos of him crawling like this. And the rest
him getting on the roof is a major part of it. But there's intelligence failures, right, Vince? I mean,
well, if he didn't have a ladder, he could have never got up there. So, in Eric's point earlier, he scoped this out.
Is there a Home Depot in Butler?
Yeah, they apparently have records of him buying. You know,
no, I'm half kidding. If there wasn't a Home Depot, it wouldn't have been an incident.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to get a substandard Walmart ladder, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really.
David Parsons was the Butler PD officer who turned tail on the roof, a recent hire from Uvalde. Okay, hold on.
Good point. Yeah.
I don't think that is a good point. I'm going to actually back up the officer for a second, because in reality, when you go officer not trained, not I even talked to the sniper about that. You gun, you duck and shoot. You know, you don't just immediately do it. So you duck to get down, get your bearing, and then shoot. You don't just automatically go, "Oh, let me pull this out, cowboy." You're crawling up.
I will counter with the Latin Mexican American officer who killed Charles Joseph Whitman in the tower in Austin, Vince, who had the courage to go up to that tower, and there was no way out. He went and confronted Whitman, who had taken out so many people.
Okay, fair enough, Mark. But even he, if it was pointed at him, might have ducked and then crawled up to the tower to get him. I mean, there is a certain reaction. I don't know if you've been under fire before. I'm not sure, but it is not necessarily easy when, you know, there's fire over you, things like that.
I didn't sign up to be a cop, so I didn't sign up for that job. But the ones who did, if you climb up a ladder and there's a guy with a sniper rifle and you've got a handgun, I mean, you could just stick that handgun over the lip of the roof of the building.
Do you have it pulled out?
Yes,
how do we know that he wasn't going down and pulling it out? You don't know the circumstance.
I would assume that you could. I would assume.
And climbing with it out. Well, how do you climb with it out? I'm saying there's a lot to it. It's an awkward situation. A lot of people.
I would have taken the gun and put it over my head, over the roof, and just shot at him. That's what I would
kind of like Clint Eastwood did.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll make sure to hire you for my protection.
No. Again, I'm not in the business of doing that. But again, this seems like Uvalde. I think the guy is right.
No,
and
it's not Uvalde, because Uvalde, they sat there for 40 minutes and they said, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Well,
Now,
this is 26
now,
minutes.
there's another example, by the way, that actually Lynn, the sniper I was talking about, I don't remember if it was Uvalde or someone else, but he talked about how critical he was because he saw this guy sitting there texting. And he's like, what the hell are you doing texting? Well, it turns out he's bleeding out saying, goodbye, my wife, I love you. And bleeding out. So there's always circumstances that we don't necessarily know. No, this is another, I don't know if it's Uvalde, was another shooting because that's what he responds to. He trains on this stuff.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm just saying that in that I can almost see it. Maybe it'll turn out. Maybe he was like, oh, you know what? Oh, I don't know if I'm going to go up there. Gee, I'm thinking about it. I don't know.
Stoneman Douglas, Parkland in Florida, where they had a security guard and he was actually put under trial because he didn't react.
That's right.
All his kids were killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got that too. That's crazy.
There's legal responsibility that they have to act, I think, Vince, right? Or not?
Sure.
I mean, they're supposed to, but I guess human instinct kicks in. Sometimes they're trying to protect themselves, unfortunately, thinking about their own behinds instead of doing their job. I guess it's easier said than done. Is, hey, let's see you go out there and try to get yourself killed.
Well, I'm saying that I'm saying that what is your number one job? Is it to run in blindly, shoot, and potentially hurt others, or is it to be effective?
This guy's a sitting duck. This guy's a sitting duck on the roof. It's not like with a bunch of school kids.
But where is he, Mark?
He's right there. He's right on the roof.
You're not looking. You don't have the visibility until you get on the roof. Then you say, I'm just saying.
Again, I think once they find this cop, his cop days are long done.
There's definitely going to be some heads that are going to roll. I think this investigation, even if there's some sacrificial lambs, when they get done with this, I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, she's going to be toast. They're going to wait. They're going to wait.
Just like the female director from 10 years ago, when the guy scaled the wall at the White House, the fence.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Building.
I forgot about that.
I get her name right now. She was only director for a brief period of time.
Right,
she resigned.
Right.
Yeah, remember that? Because he got all the way into the White House itself.
He was all the way in there doing stuff.
Yeah, he got to get tackled by an agent inside.
Mm-hmm. Inside. Right. Almost in the living quarters, right, Vince?
They brought back Joe Clancy. I love that guy, former director. He was head of Obama's detail and briefly Trump's, I think. Bald guy, real good looking, real charismatic guy. He became the director.
Vince, I'd like you to work with us to create Secret Service trading cards of all these guys that we can mutually sell on our websites. We can.
Yeah. Well, hey, you know what? Real quick, hey, this book has a lot of photos of agents who's who in the Secret Service.
We can use the book, and Eric can use his magic on them to make.
Well, do you have raw versions of those that you can send me? Because that'd be easier.
What kind of versions was it?
Well, like actual digital versions rather than trying to scan it. Because then it's easier.
My Facebook alone, and some of my blogs have tons of digital photos.
I think we can make like 6 sets out of these Secret Service cards.
I got tons.
Anyway, I look forward to the comments talking about how stupid I am. When I've actually handled the weapons, but cool. Scott Binbo, building is 139.9 yards using on X hunt. My 16-year-old daughter took an elk at 338 yards. She had about 4 hours. Again,
wow.
Everybody's like, oh my God, he's 20 years old. Well, how many GI recruits are 18 years old qualifying at the range against this easy shot?
Yeah, you're right.
Now, it's a hard shot because of circumstances and knowing that you're going down. I mean, he knew that he was not coming out.
Yeah, he was dead no matter what. Yeah.
Yes. So that's always a stressful situation and makes it difficult, but it is possible. John Cole, or Cowell, it's always great to hear Vince's insights.
Thanks.
Rosalind Duke, it's so great to hear this panel's opinions. Thank you. Thank you, Rosalind. Basil Beshkov. Hey, Basil. Incompetence. If so, scarier than a conspiracy plus zero accountability. Yeah. It's a failure.
Well, sometimes conspiracy combines with incompetence, right, Vince?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Look at Dallas. November 22nd, 1963. It's a perfect storm,
Yeah, Hanlon's razor often. Dono's ascribed to villainy or whatever that you can't say was incompetence. Tommy Bridges, thank you for having Vince. Great show as always. Thank you.
First guy I thought of was Vince. As soon as this happened, I
appreciate it.
I emailed you immediately, bro.
Yeah. Couldn't believe the hometown connection, though.
That's so sick.
If I
That's
get in
so
my
sick.
car, in probably under 5 minutes, I'd be at his house.
That's
Well,
so
you have
sick.
another connection with the JFK. Is it your birthday or mom's birthday?
Oh, well, there's a couple things. My mom died on November 22nd, just of last year, November 22nd. But also, my birthday's Floyd Boring's birthday.
Oh
He's
my
born
God.
June 25th, 1915, and I'm June 25th, 66. So stuff like that. So
Wow.
might be somebody else, but yeah.
All right. Joey Z said, so Trump is supposed to be sentenced on the 11th, so Chuck can postpone it. I don't think it's Merchon, I think you mean. He would at least get house arrest and wouldn't
He
be
said
there
it
to
went
get
through
shot.
his ear. Do you think they could do plastic surgery on his ear to rebuild it?
I don't know. He is missing a chunk of the ear for real.
I don't know if it
He
went
is missing a chunk of
cartilage.
the ear. Okay.
From what I
'Cause
understand, yeah.
Some people have said it's tantalizing that it was a glass from the teleprompter that was hit. It
Nope.
was an actual bullet. It actually was the bullet.
Yeah, I
That's
have.
what he says. That's
My
what he
witness
says.
even has pictures, and it'll be in the interview with him, showing, or it's supposed to be showing, the teleprompters both intact after the fact.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Yeah. I didn't hang on that idea, but it was tantalizing at first. And maybe it was glass shard, but wow. Then President Trump, I mean, we're talking again, millimeter. Like they had Sanjay Gupta and some other doctors on talking about how this was a gnat's eyelash or a couple of being a real tragedy. We probably would be too grief stricken or mad or both to have a show like this. Probably be like, I just fear what this country would be like if this would have been a successful assassination.
What do you make of the IEDs in the cell phones? Like the Secret Service shutting down the cell phones out of
Makes
fear of IEDs.
I tell you what, I'm going to tell you right now, Eric and Mark, my biggest fear is that, yeah, they have the magnetometers up and everything, but what's going to look like, oh, it's just an innocent citizen with his iPhone, some sort of bomb or weapon. That scares me because, the Secret Service, they don't check out phones. They just assume it's a guy with an iPhone. He's good. He doesn't have a weapon. I know it's James Bondish, but it makes me think, geez.
Well,
It happens all the time.
One of the attempts in Cuba was a film camera with a gun in it to kill Castro.
There you go.
It was a Bell and Howell jerry-rigged camera gun.
That scares me. Whenever I say
not that far-fetched.
When I see Trump and Biden and all these people reaching in with their iPhones just inches away, if that was made into some sort of device, brother.
Yeah, and folks are saying, "Oh, it's preposterous." It's like, no, you don't need that big of an explosion. It'd be the equivalent of a grenade. A grenade is very effective.
Yeah,
you don't
think
have
about
to have a giant. Yeah,
blow up anyways. You see those people, their planes, and oh my God, my pants caught on fire because the battery.
Vince, what about when we were kids with an M80?
Yeah,
with fireworks with an M80.
Exactly. Take off your arm or your eye.
We had friends that have our fingers blown off when we were kids. Come on.
Yeah.
You put an M80 up by someone's face.
Oh,
that's going to be some damage, right?
Big time. Yeah.
Yeah.
They also, I love smartasses in the chat. No, Eric developed the iPhone gun. All you need is something that blows up. It's got glass already, folks. It's already got shrapnel right there. Some sort of plastic, you throw it. If it's near the person, remember George W. Bush, they threw a shoe at him. There was a shoe bomber. Remember that, guys?
I'm thinking about McKinley. Leon Cholgaz had his hand wrapped in a handkerchief. That's how he was able to get there and fire. Oh, he's a wounded man. Okay. And he fired. So this makes you think. Yeah.
Are there any questions for Vince straight
up?
Well,
I'm going through every super chat, so just hang on.
Oh, I don't know. I don't look at it.
We're getting there, and then we got to go to locals because I know.
Well, Vince doesn't have to come to locals with us, so.
Well, they probably have questions there. Anyway, Al Gonzalez, SOP and NYPD intel is to cover and move protectee immediately in case of secondary incident. You don't remain in place.
You could frame that. Cover and evacuate is the mission of the Secret Service. Jerry Parr, who protected Reagan March 3rd, 1981. Cover and evacuate. You could frame what Al just said there. That's exactly right. You cover and evacuate. So they should have never stood him up. They should have just like a flying wedge out of there like they did with Cheney. Cheney infamously said after 9/11.
Okay. Hold on. Yes, on the movement part. But the actual holding him down while you're finding out there's a second shooter because you have a barrier already. Technically, when you're moving him, whether you're flying him or not, you're putting him at risk and being exposed. The person I talked to worked Secret Service details, not New York, not anything else. He worked Secret Service. He's a CIA guy, so everybody go, oh my God, he's CIA, so he's obviously evil and can't do anything.
There's a lot
But he
of
did Secret
CIA.
Service, and he worked with foreign dignitaries. He protected Dick Cheney, all of that in the procedure. He said, you hold them. Once they said clear, that's when they move, because there could be a secondary shooter. There could be anything going on. If you let them pop up ahead of time to start moving them, well, now you do have a target, unless you don't know. But he was in a protected environment. So I don't know if we should immediately say, no, he needed to be moved immediately. They screwed up.
Well, standing him straight up to me was bad.
That was, yeah, they shouldn't have allowed that. And he said that too. He said,
exactly.
said Trump would be a complete nightmare for the protection detail, because the guy's not cooperating and, fighting them.
Yeah. Get my shoes and all that, Yeah, exactly.
David Jones, did I miss you discussing the choice of JD Vance? No, that's Friday. We're not going to talk that now. Scott Bimbo, I'm with Mark and my father-in-law, retired LEO. He said he would have put the hand over the roof. YouTube is impossible. Chaotic Jester, since President Trump survived, my question is, will Biden be next?
Highly doubtful. He's got the A-list team. He's got the A team.
Yeah, you would think, especially
and he's not leaving his basement, so that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
he's not going out.
Funny, man.
My favorite chat for a while. Eric is right. No, is anything getting through Super Chat? No, and
apparently,
Ron C. Multiple Uvalde officers have been indicted, as well they should be. I mean, they waited for exorbitant amount of time. I mean, I was correct. I said 40 minutes. Apparently, 70 minutes. So it's one of those. It just gets worse the more you look at it.
Yeah.
Now we're going to be shifting to locals. I hope you can stick around for a few, Vince. There,
yeah,
a lot of loyal people, definite book buyers.
Yeah, if you have more questions, let me know. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, everybody, there's a link to locals. It's unstructured.locals.com. You can follow us. You can be a member there for free. Also, before I go, Mark, I know you don't want to let this go, but we're going to be in California. And we have this meetup going there for anybody who's interested. It's August 9th, the 50th anniversary of Nixon's resigning.
Ooh.
So first event we're going to be doing on the West Coast. In the description, there are links. There's a link. It's americasuntoldstories.com/events. And you can go to one of 2 days. Friday, we are doing a live show, Freeform Friday live. So it is a show that goes out on YouTube that you see every week. You'll be part of it in the audience with us. Beforehand, there'll be snacks. Afterwards, going to be a dinner. The next day, we're going to be doing a dinner and Q&A, and then we're going to be mingling with everybody, kind of a hangout. It's really intimate. We make sure to meet up with everybody, take the time, get some questions one-on-one, plus the questions in a group. I hope you consider it, but for now, because we've got a guest here, got some time going, please consider going over to locals, keep this going and answering some questions. And thank you all so much.